Thank you, Beth, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you all for joining us today for this wonderful announcement. Back when I decided to run for office in 2010, I knew that when elected, I would focus my efforts on putting taxpayers first. We've elevated the functions of this office so that we were doing the best possible job for the people that we serve, the citizens of Orange County. We focus our efforts on training and technology and increase the level of talent and skills of our appraisers at the Property Appraiser's Office. We are committed to holding all taxpayers accountable at the same level and ensure that everyone pays their fair share. I'm proud to report that we have been very, very successful in taking care of our taxpayers. That's why I've asked community leaders and you, the members of the press, to join us this morning. This office has reached a milestone, a historical milestone, I may add, and has helped our citizens of Orange County and benefited all taxpayers. I'm tremendously proud to announce that since 2013, we've returned a collective $1 billion to the tax value of Orange County and to the tax base. This is indeed a big deal. We've accomplished this through various compliance initiatives, such as exemption investigation, tangible personal property, and agricultural classification audits. Returning that amount in value to the tax base means higher assessed values for tax purposes. This yields greater revenue for our public schools, our 13 municipalities, and more resources for Orange County in general. For context, if a person or organization is not paying their fair share, the burden can potentially shift to taxpayers who are paying their fair share. We all share the responsibility of funding infrastructure, funding schools, funding parks, and even funding affordable housing. So how did we return $1 billion back to the tax base? Here is how we did it. First, we developed a process to ensure that we were holding everyone accountable. And in 2013 alone, we returned $110 million in value back to the tax base. In 2015, $188.6 million was returned. And so far this year, in only 3 months, we've returned $97 million in value back to the tax roll. Every year since 2013, we've returned at least $138 million in value back to the tax roll. We've accomplished this by being protective of our taxpayers in 3 key areas. Firstly, exemption compliance. If a property is receiving tax reduction from homestead or other exemption, the owner of this property is abusing this privilege, we investigate and we remove this exemption. Agricultural classification compliance. Any ag property that has this classification is thoroughly checked to ensure that the land is being used for bona fide agricultural purposes. And if it's not, we remove this classification. Tangible personal property audits. Each year, business owners have the ability to file a tangible personal property tax return and are required to do so according to Florida law. Through auditing processes, we make sure all returns are thoroughly reviewed and all TPP claims are valued. Here is how those 3 compliance categories have reached $1 billion. Most of it, almost half, $578 million, was returned through exemption compliance. Most of that was through homestead exemption compliance. $317 million was by way of agricultural audits, and $174 million was related to TPP audits. This adds up to just over $1 billion. In fact, every year, we've returned an average of more than $70 million back to the tax base through investigating homestead exemption fraud alone. Over the last 5 years, Orange County markets values has skyrocketed. When I took office in 2013, the county's market value was $115 billion. In 2018, that market value was just over $189 billion. The total sum. The total is sure to rise over the next few years. Construction, as you know, is popping out of the ground. More businesses are opening their doors every day, and the value of commercial property continue to be on the rise in Orange County. It will likely be over $200 billion before the end of this year. Again, this means more money for the things that we care about, like schools, roads, and of course, affordable housing. While I'm happy to announce and celebrate this achievement, I'd like to also credit my amazing staff for their efforts. I am proud of everyone at the Property Appraiser's office. They do the hard work. They do the heavy lifting every day with an unparalleled level of professionalism. I am the luckiest public servant in the world to have this amazing staff support me. If you remember the Property Appraiser's office, please stand up. Take a bow. Thank you. These folks arrive each day with a sense of eagerness to serve the taxpayers of Orange County. Because of that and our commitment to excellence, we've successfully, and of course continue to be successful in other areas as well. This year alone, we've defended 99% of our values at the Value Adjustment Board. That number is 99.9% to be exact. We also have a 99.8% customer satisfaction rating. That is unheard of in private sector and business, let alone government. When you visit our office, the average wait time in our lobby is 1.5 minutes, and if you were to call our office, the longest you should be on hold is just over 30 seconds. Celebrating the accomplishments of this office and our partners across the county isn't the end of our work, it is the beginning. We will continue to investigate homestead exemption fraud. We will continue to audit tangible personal property returns, and we will keep removing agricultural exemption when it's not justified. All of this to protect our taxpayers. And it is very likely that in another 5 years, we'll be standing here celebrating another milestone of $2 billion returned to the tax base. In closing, as I always say, when we all pay our fair share, we all pay less. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rick Singh. I'm your property appraiser.
Does anybody have any questions?
Can this in any way help in the solution of solving our affordable housing crisis here in Central Florida? And if so, how and in what ways?
Well, of course, it's money that goes into the general fund, and it's for our leaders at the county or cities or different municipalities to make that decision in the spending of that fund. Of course, as property appraiser, we don't control expenditure, we just control assessment.
Mr. Singh, can you give us an idea of the actual dollars that have been returned, that have been generated by this, returning these values to the property tax rules? I mean, in revenue, any idea of what that amounts to?
Yeah, so it's complex. It's not as easy as you would think because every municipality has a different millage and a different factor. But conservatively, we would estimate it to be around $20 million.
Do you have some examples? I'm sorry. Do you have some examples of the homestead fraud? I mean, that's kind of. It sounds like that's the big thing there. So.
Yeah, of course, we can always provide that for you. We don't have examples of that today, but we can always provide that for you.
You have a big one that might come to mind?
There are many big ones that may come to mind, but again, I don't want to speak on specifics until I have facts in front of me.
Mr. Singh, in addition to your successes at the Value Adjustment Board, you've also been hit by a number of suits by taxpayers or property owners out there that disagree with your assessments. How much have you spent on defenses, legal defenses to those?
So we've spent, over the years, we've spent a large amount of dollars defending the tax base, but it's the return on investment you ought to be looking at. The return on investment has been phenomenal. OBJ just did an article and talked about the return on the investment. I lead you to that article. Again, We have only lost one case that I can think of at the court level, and we've been challenged by many large entities. 90% of that challenge comes from theme parks, and that's a fact. So again, it is incumbent upon us to defend, and let me repeat that. We are the defendants in these cases, and we have to uphold the integrity of the taxpayers. This is what property appraisers do.
So you talk about the return on investment here. That's the revenue that has been achieved through the additional taxes versus the amount that's spent on the defense of these lawsuits. Any idea what that number is?
Again, one more time.
What is the return on investment compared with what's spent on defense?
Well, again, you know, challenge are billions and billions of dollars that's challenged. The defense that we've spent is in the hundreds of thousands. So again, it's simple math. You know, when you are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend billions of dollars, the return on investment is truly nominal.
Without singling out one specific case, then, can you tell us about what goes into investigating fraud?
So again, most of our leads come from the public, neighbors. Our real estate community will identify someone that is, again, not playing fair, and they will report that. We investigate that. We have a group of investigators, typically ex-law enforcement, that will do an investigation. Again, we're not hawkish in our investigation. A lot of it is an education process. You may have someone that is getting an exemption in New York or Connecticut or someplace else and innocently come to Orange County and have gotten an exemption and no one has told them different. We will educate them, we'll remove that exemption and move on. So again, our job here is not to indict anyone or to you know, be hawkish with our process. Our job here is to be fair and equitable and ensure everyone is paying their fair share.
Mr. Singh, how much of this fraud is related to people using their homes as Airbnb outlets?
So again, that's something that is we really are waiting for legislation to dictate to us. And again, I think I speak for all property appraisers in addressing the Airbnb issue. Legislation from a state standpoint have to be enacted for us to really be proactive in enforcing Airbnb. So that's a number that we don't have at this time.
Is it fair to say, I mean, are there any cases in there that are related to vacation rentals? Right?
I can't think of any at this time. Any other questions?
There's been claims of sexual harassment made against your office. And where is that? Where is that lawsuit? And what is your response to those claims?
Again, I am vigorously defending my person, and I'm vigorously defending the integrity of this office, and we will continue to do that in the court system. The function of this office still continues. We've been ranked almost #1 in the state of Florida for accuracy of assessment, #1 in the state of Florida for defensive assessment, #1 for efficiencies. So we have done tremendous work on behalf of this office. The work of this office continues. Allegations will always be made as a public individual and as a public entity. But again, the integrity of this office speaks for itself, and we'll vigorously defend it.
And let me follow up on something Scott Power asked you about the lawsuits. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. Are you, in a way, saying that this is the cost of having to examine and investigate fraud? I mean, is that part of the cost of doing it?
Well, again, defending fraud in the environment of homestead exemption or exemption classification, exemption TPP audits, and is different from valuation challenges. Valuation challenges will always be. Every county in this state of Florida has some aspect of valuation defense. Because of the level of assessment and because of the scrutiny that we have put when I took office, we evaluated the tax roll and we determined that properties were not properly assessed. In doing our job, entities that were getting away with not paying their fair share obviously challenged those values at the Value Adjustment Board and lost. The next step in the process for them, if they continue to contest their assessment, is the court system.
Well, just to be clear, the billion that we're talking here isn't that's not from reassessing theme park stuff. This
No.
this is from homestead fraud, and homestead exemption fraud.
Three areas, Steve. Exemption, TPP audits, and agricultural classifications. Those are the three areas of which we've returned $1 billion.
Talking about the Blossom Park apartments.
Sorry?
Like the Blossom Park apartments in the Orange Blossom Trail. Looks like being transferred titles illegally. What do you want to say about that?
Again, this is something I don't know. Transfer of title is not something that we handle. Transfer of title is something that I think the comptroller or the other entities would handle. Again, if it's valuation, we handle it. Transfer of titles and the legalities of transfer of titles is not something within our wheelhouse.
Tag teaming with Steve, we got
You guys should sit together.
I can't pull that out.
We can't stand each other, so that's. When you talk about the agriculture exemptions that are in there, and he asked about the theme parks, there were at least one lawsuit involving theme parks and agriculture exemption, correct?
There is one that I can think of.
Yes, okay.
And I can get those numbers for you, Steve, Scott.
Well, I'll take it too.
All right. Did you guys get together before this press conference?
No, like you said, we hardly ever talk.
Yeah.
Can't stand each other.
Let's fix that.
All right, so
Anybody else?
any other questions?
Yeah, one right here, Mr. Singh.
Yeah.
Given the influx of folks at 1,500 per week, how do you feel that affects the sort of influx of people starting businesses and commercial properties?
I mean, it has a tremendous impact on people coming in and starting, starting businesses and buying houses. You know, there's an old adage in the real estate business that says retail follow rooftops, or rooftops follow retail. They follow each other. So again, if a subdivision is built, some entrepreneur is going to see a need to fill that need. So they go hand in hand. You know, we're in great economic times. We're doing tremendous in terms of new construction here. Last year, the number was $4.2 billion, which is about $12 million in new construction every single day in this county. So again, it's a lot of prosperity that we are experiencing.
Mr. Singh, where are the hot spots?
Hotspots would be Lake Nona, continue to be the hotspot. Horizon West, something you're writing about. You still writing about it?
I hope so.
Okay. Horizon West, and of course the downtown Orlando. There's this whole corridor that's being infilled. But we're also seeing non-traditional areas starting to be hotspots, if you will. Apopka, East Orlando, we're starting to see growths. But no matter where you are in Orange County, there is tremendous growth.
You know, you mentioned Apopka, if I may ask a follow-up on that. How much of that do you attribute to the completion of the Kelly Park exit and that whole beltway around there?
You know, I think, folks getting there is often one of the key indicators, transportation and ease of transportation to work or to school or to work, play, or whatever they do. But also parks are so much, I just was with the mayor cutting a ribbon on the east side of Orlando in Christmas. And, parks is something folks look for when they come from New York or they come from Connecticut or other parts of the country where they have parks, more mature areas where they have parks. They look for some place for their children to play sports or just enjoy as a family. So I think parks are so important and one of the unseen things that we take for granted. So I think they're important. Sir?
As far as the arteries going in and out of these smaller municipalities surrounding Orlando, what is your role in assisting those municipalities, ensuring that their infrastructure is supporting that growth that's coming? I
am a fan. My role is, again, it's assessing the value, the assets of the county. As a citizen, I'm concerned. But again, we have no input into the municipalities and the powers that be that are responsible for infrastructure. Again, our job is just quite simply to fairly and equitably assess the assets of the county.
And what is your role about affordable housing?
Again, I'm a champion for affordable housing. I look forward to sharing the data. As you know, property appraisers traditionally are the largest collector of data in local government. I look forward to sharing that information with anyone that asks. You know, so if the powers that be did not come to the property appraiser and ask them for data, I think they'd be advocating the function of trying to solve the problem of affordable housing, because we have a tremendous amount of data in our database.